Welcome to the NICOLE podcast. I'm Lisa Watson and will be joined by my co-hosts NICOLE Frolick and Brian Koenigberg. The NICOLE podcast is a weekly show that provides an unconventional and refreshing spin on spirituality, where three friends and weekly guests share informative, fun, and usually off-the-wall conversations. Unlike others, we provide fringe and skeptical viewpoints on all topics, because our experience has taught us that the echo chamber is a boring place from which to learn. So regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, we can promise you you're going to find a place to fit in here. So we invite you to grab a drink and listen in on our casual, entertaining, and hopefully enlightening conversation. And enLIGHTenUP is a self-funded podcast, so if you would like to help us to continue to be able to produce, enhance, and expand the show for our audience, then please send your support using the link in the show notes, or go to our website, enlightenup.us, and check out our merchandise shop, where you can purchase merchandise that will allow you to express some spiritual humor. You may also show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes and following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting us, and now let's jump right into the episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. You are joined with Brian, Lisa, and myself. We are inviting a new guest to the show. His name is Gary Sugar. He is a practitioner of purpose and an advocate for advancement. One of his life missions is to help individuals get off the couch and change their lives while creating legacies that will inspire the world. Gary loves to live and lives to love. Gary Sugar, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Lisa, Brian, how are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Great, Sugar Man. Great to have you on.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, you and Lisa are longtime friends.
Yeah, we not too long, but it's been about 4 years now, I guess. And I met Gary at a networking event for Legal Shield, and ended up working with him in this multi-level marketing Legal Shield for a bit, and realized, wow, this guy is inspiring. He knows how to bring out the best in everyone, and such a connector, and has taught me a lot.
Well, Gary, I've heard some really good things about you while I've known Lisa. I've yet to been graced by your fabulous presence yet. Hopefully we'll be able to change that soon in the near future. Before we started the show, we were talking about how you believe that people leave their greatest gifts in the cemetery. That's a very interesting statement. Do you want to take us through that?
Well, I'll take you through the story that brought how I discovered that, or had that revelation. It was through Legal Shield. I was at an event, and a gentleman by the name of Dr. Miles Monroe was speaking, and it felt like out of the hundreds of people, it could have been thousands of people there, I wasn't counting, but it felt like he was talking directly to me. He was speaking straight to my soul. He was talking about living life on purpose. And he asked a question that it changed the path of my life. And that question was, where is the wealth place on earth? And many of us were naming out physical locations like Dubai or the United States, or the diamond mines in Africa, the oil in Saudi, and you hear all these answers coming through, which he said, look, all sound great, but he discovered that the wealthiest place on earth were the cemeteries. And then that's when he went into the reasons why. And it felt like at that moment, every single person disappeared in the room, and it was just Dr. Miles Monroe and myself. And he started talking about songs that were never composed, things that were never invented, companies never started, the laundry list of seeds of gifting that we come to this earth, and the earth and the community here is waiting for us to deposit those seeds into earth so that it can benefit mankind, but yet we don't. And we take those gifts, those seeds of gifting, back to the graves with us. And so he had challenged us to rob the grave. And once again, I thought it was just he and I in that room. And it was at that moment I got on a crusade to what my purpose was. And it came full circle back to what he was talking about. It's a thing that keeps me up at night. It has me engaged with people throughout the course of the day. And it would be rare that you would bump into someone that we're not walking down this path here that we're talking about right now. so that even if they leave my presence and I no longer see them again, they have food to think about, something to chew on that would take them on that journey so they can start that self-discovery so that we can start the grave. So that's how that concept came to life, and I've been walking with it ever since. And that started in 2008.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so when you talk about like getting off the couch, it's about this idea that, the people have all these ideas in their minds and dreams, but they don't actually take the action to bring them into fruition, into this reality so that they take shape and form. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So how do you help people get off the couch?
Well, the first thing we start to help people turn their focus from external to inward. And when we start to look inward instead of looking outward, we start to ask different questions. One of the questions that I challenge everyone to ask is, why am I here? And that question alone, when we pause and become still and listen for an answer, not an answer coming from our logical thinking, our conscious mind, the one that's been domesticated, been influenced by all the externals, family, friends, the socioeconomic conditions we may grow up in, you name it. But when we turn inward and we start listening to our subconscious, our heart, our true spiritual side, the real answers start to reveal themselves. And so that's where we start with first. Why am I here? And then the other question we will get people to start asking and start waiting to receive the answer is, what am I designed for? And then we take them on a series of questions just to start to open up, or better yet, scratch the surface of going inward versus outward. We call it taprooting.
The greatest teachers are those who've actually experienced what they're teaching. So have you gone through your own experience of getting off the couch that you draw upon to help people?
I have, and that's how I came to this revelation, because when he mentioned that, it made me start to ask those questions. Why am I here? And I still ask those questions to this day. And what starts to take place is you start to find yourself in a situation where time feels like it stops when you engage with other people. You're not thinking about, or you being paid for this. So the whole economic side is removed. You just feel like you're in perfect flow. And I find that all the time when I'm engaged with people and I'm walking them down this path. But I had to take myself down the path at first. I mean, it didn't come easy. Here I am transitioning accountant from corporate America. I started investing time in the business Lisa mentioned earlier, Legal Shield, to build this foundation. And it wasn't always purpose driven. There was a lot of economic factors that was driving that move. I wanted to provide my family a better life than I ever had before. I wanted to buy back my time. And so there was some other factors there. But when I started focusing on my calling, my gifting, my purpose, it revealed itself to me. And like I said before, I find myself in so many occasions going down this path of discovery with people in casual conversations. But it had to happen for me first to break free of those chains of domestication. Because many people, if the profits are not always there when you're pursuing your purpose. So financially, life can be turned upside down. And what happens is when those fears start to surface, many people start to panic, and they will abort, they will deviate from their path of purpose, and they go back to things that are most comfortable. Right? Apathy was set in, and for me, apathy hasn't set in. Don't mean that the journey hasn't been challenging, but I haven't went back to what was comfortable at one point. I've been sacrificing a whole life, and a whole lot, not a whole life, but I've been sacrificing a whole lot, and the journey has been fulfilling.
Well, that's very common when people are start to have the courage to go after some of their dreams and explore certain areas of their life that are bringing more fulfillment, and maybe even trying to turn it into a business, that they get stuck, or they stop themselves, or they self-sabotage, and they go back into a place of comfort. This happens a lot. So what are your suggestions to people when that's happening? Because a lot of it's due to fear, a lot of it's due to not being in a comfort zone that, many people can handle for long periods of time or work through. And so they revert back to what they know, and feels good, because, hey, we all like to feel good at what we know. So how do you help people recognize that and basically abort going back to the comfort zone?
Through one of our programs that we teach is called AIM. And there's 13 principles that come with AIM. AIM is an acronym. The A in AIM, at least the one I will share on the podcast here, it starts with our attitude. The I is following our intuition, and then the M is mindset. All right, and so if we aim, we continue to stay aim, and what we're aiming at is that vision. So purpose being the vision of whatever that was revealed to us. And what happens is most people take their eye off what they're aiming at. So they take their eye off of that vision, and they will allow distractions around them to surface. So that could be family, that could be economic pressures, that could be friends who have not lived out their calling, and they may start questioning your journey with good intentions. Because not all of us here to hurt people. I think all of us here are designed to serve people, and so sometimes people serve us with good intentions, but it could be detriment to the path that we're on because they haven't decided to release the shackles and start to pursue their purpose. And so if we stay aimed, meaning our attitude is lockstep with that vision, that we appreciate the moment, we accept what is happening, and our attitude is in one of, this is designed for it to happen for me. It's like any seed, the potential of that seed is already inside it. And so when we reveal a vision, a purpose, and it came from within, it's inevitable for it to take place for us. And so our attitude must stay locked on it. I heard Michael Beckwith say one day that if what we're currently experiencing doesn't look like the vision, then right now it's temporary. So we should not have a permanent reaction to a temporary circumstance. But many people will allow those temporary circumstances to take them off the path. But we stay focused with our attitude, help us stay tuned into the frequency of what that vision that was gifted to us is showing us. The next one is to follow our intuition. Oftentimes, many people will follow logical solutions or logical tactics to accomplish something. When we're coming from the heart, when we're coming from the spirit, a lot of steps that we take are not logical. You can't find them in a book. You can't find them written down somewhere because my path is different from your path. And if I'm looking or listening or reading something that someone else is dictating that I should take these particular steps, and they've never been in my shoes, they haven't been on my path, that could be a distraction. And I'm a reader, I'm a listener, and I study and learn from all people. But I'm also tuned into the fact that my journey is different from anyone else's journey on this earth. So I will follow my intuition and allow that to be my guide more than anything else. And obviously, our intuition, that's where our spirit is at. And that's where that divine guidance will always lead us correctly versus the logical side where it doesn't look like the steps that anyone else have taken before, and we can start to veer off the path. And the last one is a mindset. And the AIM principle I just shared with you, mindset is being open mentally to all options, being ready to take the stride, to take the step, and also being ready to pause when necessary, and being comfortable in silence, in stillness. Also having the mindset to continue on that journey inward. Many externals will pull us away and have us to focus on other things. But when we tuned in and we got the right mindset, we know we're going to continue to mine for purpose. And purpose capital is in all of us. And we will continue to mine and continue to mine until we hit the vein. And we know when we hit that vein because now we move in that flow. And we can move in spite of external circumstances. So that's what we focus on, aim. We take those same letters and we reverse them. If we're not taking aim, then things are missing in action. All right. Then you take those same 3 letters, and this is where we really help people anchor in their vision so that they're tuned into their subconscious frequency more than anything else. Those same 3 letters spell out the word or the phrase, I am. And that's where we help people anchor, to really help them create the story and continue to repeat the story throughout the day, to also have conversations with others in this framework here of the I am, so that they're programming themselves or unlearning what they've learned and re-domesticating themselves. But this domestication comes from inward, not external. Now, no matter what shows up in our life, we stay the course. So those are like 3 steps or 3 phases we take people through. That aim is 13 principles. I only gave you guys 1 out of them, but that same flow, aim, MIA, and I am. That's how we help people stay the course.
I've found that we tend to, when we make a big shift and we try to remove those shackles of domestication and those self-limiting beliefs and all the things that society has taught us that we're supposed to do, and we want to take this new course to fill our own passion and purpose, and things come up, like you said, whether it be family or friends or a financial situation or just, it's a different way of life. We start feeling uncomfortable. We're stretched outside our comfort zone. Oftentimes, when that fear comes up, we tend to want to take action in that fear or solve the problem, inside the problem. And what we end up getting is just we create more situations for ourselves that bring on more fear, instead of doing, that step that you spoke about where it's like you have to sort of settle in, let it wash over you, allow some time and space, and really trust yourself and detach yourself from those outside circumstances that are feeding you those old programs and, regurgitating to you, and your egos, they're regurgitating to you all your past failures and all the reasons why this isn't a good idea and that you're not going to be safe, and really just keeping your eye on the prize. I think that that's the trickiest part of all, is really allowing yourself to detach from those old programs and giving yourself space and the freedom to continue to move forward.
To bolt on to what you just shared, a technique that I think is natural to all of us, but maybe not a common practice, is to go out and be with nature. Go by a creek or stream, or sit back and stare at the sun, or gaze in the direction of the sun, or look at the stars. Just be one with mankind, and at that moment, everything starts to slow down, because now we pull ourselves back into the present moment, and we're connected back to our true energy source. And then we're able to turn around and start to move again down the path. The crazy part is we still ourselves, we are allowed to accelerate down the path faster than our conscious mind that forces us to effort so often. There's so much power in that stillness that many people neglect.
The power of now.
That's the only moment that exists. Yeah.
Like we completely, that's where the power is, in living in that present moment. You're absolutely right. Staying focused.
When I was taking my yoga teacher's training class in 2008, there was, we're all paired up with someone in our living quarters. And I had this young girl who was like in her early 20s, and she was from Hawaii, and she's super cute and fun and very outgoing and always wanting to do things, and just had a lot of energy. And during the yoga program, at one point, we would always have time for reflection with the teacher where we'd all sit in a group and reflect on things that have been kind of coming up throughout the process. And she was having a really hard time when she found herself bored. And she didn't want to be bored. She wanted to be doing things. And it was interesting to observe that I think many people have a difficult time being quote unquote bored, being in that kind of still place where nothing else is going on and nothing's pulling at you to do. And you're forced to look inward and pay attention to what's going on in your own mind, what's going on in your own thoughts, and why you're so uncomfortable being in that place of non-distraction and having...
I think I'm that way.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, people want to fill up their time or their mind space with things to do so that they're not forced to pay attention to what, that little voice in the back that's constantly going, it's the subconscious mind, that's trying to reach you. But there's so much going on. And so her advice was to learn to be comfortable with being bored and find the actual beauty in being bored and what gifts are lying there within her boredom.
That's interesting. I was talking to my son Alex the other day. Actually, we were just texting, but he has had some life changes happen recently with his job and breaking up with his girlfriend and moving and he said he said, I've been just working a lot. I've been just working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. because he doesn't have a lot going on because he doesn't have a girlfriend and he's just trying to work. And I said, it's okay to just take time for yourself because I see so much of myself in him the way that I have been for most of my life. Just go, 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 go. And he said, but I get bored. So he made me think of him. And he said, so I just, I said, just try to be, I understand that. And it was for me, I literally had to manifest this back injury out of nowhere to get my ass on the couch for a year and a half, almost 2 years, before I could be comfortable with being bored and comfortable with not feeling like I constantly had to be doing something. And it was extremely uncomfortable for me. I went through all these sorts of feelings of just worthlessness and self-doubt. And it was just unbelievable, all the stuff that started coming up for me when I was forced to just sit still in it. I couldn't hide my feelings of unworthiness anymore because, I was using action and creating, and whether it was like cleaning or taking care of my family or working or, bringing in an income or whatever it may have been to hide these feelings of unworthiness that were coming up in me.
That's what floats to the surface for me. That's why I don't like it. It's the ego has your undivided attention to say, yeah, you're not succeeding.
Right. And once you move past that and you start to self-reflect and you can go a little bit deeper and then you start to find the root of where these feelings of unworthiness are coming from, because we came to this planet worthy. We were born worthy. We don't have to do anything to be worthy. We just are. But, because of all the things that happen in our childhood and scars and wounds and things, we believe then that we have to do all these things to prove our worthiness. And sometimes you just, like you said, Nicole, you have to sit in your boredom to be able to release that, or you have to sit in your unworthiness and you have to be able to find where the root of it is to heal that, instead of continually moving and trying to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once again, this is listening to everyone. I point each of us and those who will be listening to nature. I think there are certain trees that teaches us the perfect example of letting go and not worrying about externals. In the wintertime, we don't even pay attention to trees because the leaves are not there and the trees are not providing shade or a beautiful look or whatever it may be. And it's in that moment that they start to grow the most. I've never seen a tree bend over to pick the leaves back up. I've never seen a tree take its branches and start to cover and protect itself because of the eyes of the onlookers judging what it's all about. The tree just lives out its potential. In the seasons where it looks like nothing is happening because the outside world is not appreciating the beauty and the abundance in a tree that has no leaves, that's where the most growth is taking place at. So we can learn from nature, and I love learning from the trees. I love learning from streams, the grass, the air, the you name it. But just once again, get out in nature when those feelings start to rise up in us. I'm not worthy. I'm not doing enough. I'm not living up to, and that's the question that many people must ask themselves. I'm not living up to what? Because most often, if they finish that statement, it's living up to the story that someone else has set for us, a societal norm that may have been cast upon us. Back to the word domestication, things that we say we're supposed to do to reflect how we're supposed to be as a man or a woman. But we really want to ask that question, am I living up to my truest essence? We'll get a different answer. We'll find ourselves starting to, like the tree, release some of those externals, and then our bearings start to grow more. And we get stronger also in those moments.
That's tuning into the cycle of nature in itself and understanding that that cycle resides in all of us. And that,
Yeah.
like you said with the tree, I think that's beautiful. That's a beautiful example of understanding that, there's only so much growth that can happen before you need to go back inward for rest, recovery, rejuvenation, and stimulation on the inner plane so that can continue on the outer plane, and not being so hard on ourselves when we do need to go inward. I think some people, though, struggle with getting stuck in one or the other, either the ebb or the flow, like whether they're in like that kind of taking action, or getting stuck in the part where you're in like the ebb part where you need to do reflection, you need to observe, you need to take a look at what's going on within you first. Sometimes people get stuck there and can't get out of it to finally either take the action or go back into reflection. What are your thoughts on that, Gary?
That's that moment where we quiet the mind and we listen to our heart. And it's easier said than done. When we make a conscious effort to do something that is normal to all of us, but we've been drawn away from that normal path to do certain routines that have become habits, is at that moment you'll be able to start to truly hear the soul. We'll start to be able to see the path light up. And we start to see the solutions in the midst of all of that. So it is quieting the mind as the first priority. And that's why I encourage to go and be one with nature, because being out there, we start to find appreciation all around us. And I mean, the bills could be due, the house could be about to be foreclosed on, the car could be ready to be repossessed, the spouse could be screaming and yelling at you because you're not living up to your end of the bargain financially, or there could be empty promises that haven't been delivered on, that it's going to happen, but in this present moment, it's not happening. So all those pressures can rise up around us. But as long as they don't rise up in us, they too will fade away. We turn around and we move ourselves out in nature and we start looking for things to appreciate. And the first thing we're supposed to appreciate is us. We start to seek and show love for who we are in this moment, no matter what the circumstances are. The family could be against us. It could be the kids. It could be whoever. The world, we could feel like it's coming at us. When we start to show love for us, the outside world will start to reflect that. Sometimes we go outward to try to fix something that truly needs to be touched on inward. So, still in the mind, calming down, going being with nature. We can't do it ourselves. And then once again, go inward and start showing appreciation for who we are, appreciation for why we are here, and love ourselves. And then know that when we touch and tune into our inside world, the outside world will reflect that.
Gratitude is amazing. It's amazing how much gratitude can pull your head out of your ass, is what I want to say. And all you're feeling like,
Yes.
like you said, like everything's falling apart and the mortgage is due and the relationships are falling apart. And it's just like shifting your energy into vibration and love, whether, it be just in nature or of yourself, or just like thinking of all the things in your life that you have to be grateful for, and all the people who do appreciate you and all the people that you appreciate. And it's a really quick fix for your vibration and getting yourself back up.
Gratitude is how you 0 point your energy field, so that you can shift, like you said, to shift the energy. It's the energy of 0 pointing, so that you're not stuck in some sort of negative. And when I'm saying negative, I'm just saying it relative to where you could be. A negative timeline, so to speak, of what you're experiencing, what your reality is reflecting back to you, which of course is what you touched on, Gary, is what's going on within you. And that's why it's so important to show gratitude, to show love to yourself, so that it can then be reflected back to you in your outer world. Because everything is a mirror. Everything is a mirror within our own hologram of what's going on within inside of us. And I think, Lisa, too, you said you brought it up earlier in the show about the importance of being here now and being present. And I think that's one of the things that people can do when they're stuck, if they feel like they're stuck in the ebb or they're stuck in the flow of action, is that you said, Gary, is it a habitual thing? Are you doing it a habit, or are you consciously choosing it? Are you consciously present in all of what you're doing, whether it's being still or whether it's in your actions? And I think that's a key indicator of understanding when you're actually showing up for yourself, or when you're just being lazy and sitting on the couch, not being present in that moment.
And so much of what we do are learned behaviors. I'm really learning a lot about that right now from observing myself, and feeling like when I feel disempowered, or, I'm in that place of fear, or I'm being triggered, I've realized that I take on the habits of my mom. And now that I've really been paying attention and watching, I'm like, when we're children and we're watching, like when things happen, and who has the power, like it's your mom or your dad typically, or your primary caregiver, whoever that may be. And how are they behaving? What is it that they're doing? And if they're, like yelling or screaming, you might feel like that's where you gain your power back. So when you start to feel disempowered in your life, you may feel like, that's your trigger, and you start to want to take your power back through action, through blame or yelling or screaming. And for me, watching my mother, she was depressed. She would go to bed, or she would get sad, or it was more like victimization. And not that I walk around acting like I'm a victim, but it's more of a feeling that comes over me when I'm feeling in this place of disempowerment. Like it's sort of like I just want to shut the world out. I just need to stop and like go away. And I don't take action in that moment. And I've learned through observation that that's what I'm doing. And I think it's really important, this whole conversation that we've been having about getting still and observing and watching yourself, and not being afraid to feel what it is that you feel. Is it boredom that you feel? Is it anger that you feel? Where are you, and is this a habit, and where did this come from? And really self-reflecting. It's if we just keep moving, we don't ever stop to find out where the problem actually stems from. I did that for a lifetime. It feels like, just distractions. I'll just keep cleaning the house, or I'll just keep going to work, or, I got to go to the grocery store, or I'm just going to start doing the laundry, or I'm going to clean, I had the most perfectly clean house there ever was, just because I would never stop. I didn't want to feel those feelings of unworthiness. I didn't want to go there.
That's why it's so imperative that we fall in love with ourselves. Amazing to see society, how often we use the word love, but it's outward projecting versus inward. And we would probably tell someone else we love them more than we've ever told ourselves how much we love us. And if we start there first, that'll be a different whole, a paradigm shift. I could never sit here and confess that I love the three of you if I did not love myself, because it would just be idle words. If I truly love myself, then there's so much power behind me saying I love the three of you. And the other thing is not buying into the fact that we are these patterns. We're not our past patterns, or we're not the patterns that were displayed in front of us. But we can start to consciously choose our emotions. We start to shift those patterns. And it will immediately stop once we recognize it happening. That's awareness.
Recognition is like 60% of the battle. Brian and I have been talking about that, because he's been working on listening to his ego lately.
Well, yeah, I had my session with Jessica this morning, and we were talking about, some triggers that I identified that came up. And, so I asked her, I said, so how do I go about, working on them? And she said, you just did. You found them. You
Yes.
identified it, and that's the biggest part of it.
Awareness is the greatest alchemy there is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful, because once you are aware of something, you can't deny it anymore. It's always going to be there in front of your face, whether you try to hide from it or not. It's always going to be peeking up right around the corner.
Yeah.
The beauty behind it is it gives us an indicator. I was in a meeting just an hour or so ago, and the question at hand was about turbulence. That turbulence is going to show up in our business. It's going to show up in our life. How do we prepare for it? And I heard everyone go around and share their opinions. And my opinion was, bring it on. Because when the turbulence comes, when I'm aware of it, it allows me, or is the indicator that helps me turn around and go inside, because wow, here's what I'm stirring up. Back to that, my inner world creates my outer world. So I'm not going to react or get emotional about what I see on the outside. And that could be someone that's close to me bringing conflict. That could be something I may catch if I'm randomly on the internet or something and I see some news that I could perceive as negative. All those things that I see, indicators that, hey, I'm off my path. I'm not in a state of appreciation. I'm not in a state of love. I'm not looking at the beauty and abundance about what the world is bringing to me right now. I'm not even participating in the unfolding consciously. And so now this gives me an opportunity to course correct. And at that moment, I had to go to the things that make me feel good. And that first starts with, Gary, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm proud of you. And then from there, I get to turn around and start thanking the outside world for all the gifts that are around me, the air we breathe. Just take a moment to stand still, just breathe it in, hold it in, hug it, and then release it. And know that the same air has been circulating through not only us, but generations prior. And now I'm embracing history right now. and I'm looking at the water, I'm touching the water, and it's just like, wow, we're one. And so I'm doing things like that to get my mind off of whatever the circumstance that has revealed itself to me, so that I don't see that any longer. Now I'm back in alignment with my true self. And now when I come back and face the same situation, the same circumstance, or the same person, it's different.
I think it's important to clarify to the audience, because a lot of people kind of misperceive what you've just said and will believe that it's all about kind of sticking your head in the sand and avoiding anything negative in your reality and pretending it doesn't exist. And that's not what you're saying. But I know that sometimes people hear that. And so I just want to clarify that what you're doing, it's not about, if you see something awful, whether it's on the news or whether it's in your current reality right in front of your face, it's not about, disregarding it, putting your head in the sand, but it's about not allowing that energy to influence your energy so that it takes you down, but stay in your power so that you might be able to even influence that situation in a much more positive way.
Well, our outside world is a reflection of our inside world. So if something negative was brought to you, it's an opportunity as well, like Gary said, to go within and shift your energy, because that's everything's frequency and vibration.
And you said before, Gary, which I thought was really cool, and I think a lot of people don't even realize this, is that your feelings are a choice. They're not something that just happens to you. Now, it can happen to you, or it seems like it happens to you when it's unconscious, when you're unconscious and you're not aware that you're allowing other people to influence your own feelings. But knowing that you actually have the power to choose your feelings at any given time is very empowering and can completely, like you said, course correct, change the course, and help you interact with your reality from a completely different place.
And you also spoke of how it's a learn, feelings can be learned as well. Like what I was saying about my mom, or, some people have, are around parents that use anger a lot, or, they believe that if you don't get upset that you don't care. So, something happens and you're not upset, say somebody dies or somebody's injured or someone loses a job or, something like that happens and you're not upset. You may feel like that's just normal, like I'm supposed to be upset because that means I care. But when you really sit and self-reflect, you can learn that actually that's a learned behavior. That's something that I was taught. I was taught to react that way. I was taught to feel that way. And I have a choice here. I don't have to feel that way.
It's why I refused. Well, it's why I don't like going to funerals because it's such an overwhelming grieving place, which, believe me, the grief has its own place here in our reality, and it's very important for us to heal. But there seems to be only an importance placed on grievance as opposed to celebration of life. And, whether what we choose, how we choose to honor a life, whether it's through grieving or through celebration, and it's a personal choice. It's your choice. You get to choose. But for me, it's like, I much prefer to celebrate. Because when you realize that nothing really is dying, that we're all coming back around again, and that person's just energetically now available to you, not in the physical form, but energetically, it really starts to change your perception of life here and how you interact with it.
Yeah, I always thought that you should wear really bright colors to a funeral and celebrate. You should celebrate the life.
Doesn't what you just said though, Nicole? Can't you go to you just said it's your mindset, so can't you go to a funeral and be celebratory?
I could. I just don't like the energy that's around the funeral.
All the other people.
It's a very, well, when you're empathic, Okay. You feel a lot more than just what, you see around you. Like you really feel it. And,
Mm.
you can put up your boundaries and you can, not take it on, but it's difficult. And I personally would rather have my own celebration of how I choose to say goodbye to that person or honor that. And I've done that where, I think I've been fortunate throughout my life where I'm traveling a lot, and it happens to be that when I'm traveling, people are passing away and I can't be there for the funeral. And so I've actually had, like, this happened when I was in my yoga teacher's training. My Nana passed away, and everyone told me to stay, to not leave my teacher's training program. And so I went down to the beach, and the Hawaiian girl who was bored, she made the most beautiful Hawaiian lei, flower lei, because their tradition was to throw it into the water when someone passed away. And so I took some girlfriends that I had come close with over a couple of weeks, and we went down, and I read something out loud to say, like, to honor my Nana and say goodbye. And I did it at sunset because I thought that was appropriate. And I threw the layout as far as I could. And then we all started jumping around in the water and laughing and kind of dancing. And that's just how I wanted to say goodbye. And I just don't feel like I could honor that in a funeral setting, because I know people would be offended or take that personally. And to be honest, it's not the environment that I would want to say goodbye.
Got you. It's interesting what she's sharing, because that's those external pressures to behave and act a certain way when, once again, no one's in our shoes, no one's ever been on our path. We've only been on our path, and there is no set way. And many people frown at me and my family because it's a handful of times I show up for a funeral, and I'm really there to support someone that I know that is going to be challenged. Like the last funeral I went to, I was there for my mom, not my grandfather, who was transitioning. He's in a good space. I know she wasn't going to be in a good space, so I came there for her. Prior to that, my cousin was murdered in St. Louis. I wasn't there to pay tribute to him. We're having our conversations, and I was there to support my auntie, to help her. But many people would not embrace the celebration because we're taught and conditioned to act a certain way, and not showing up is tough. But I love me, I know me, and I'm good with me, state, then not only not going up to funerals, but you can pick anything else in life where we expect it to do. If it's not flowing with our rhythm and flow, then it's okay for us to check out.
And I wanted to say something about that too. It's what I've learned recently about being an empath is that how it really is a superpower. So, we do take on, other people's energy, but once you sort of settle into that you're an empath and understanding what's going on, for say like a funeral situation, just like what Gary was saying, you're able to bring, as an empath, you're able to bring so much to other people, like to have that feeling of joy and that celebration of life, and to hold that feeling in your heart and to hold that feeling in your energy field and just push it out to the room, and be that beacon of light that you are, without having to, be real flamboyant about it. You don't have to wear, a bright colored dress and run around giggling and giddy like you're at a wedding or anything, but just from your energy field, you're able to support people so much. And because we do feel so much as an empath, it truly is a superpower that we have to be able to extend that to an entire room without anybody even knowing what's going on. You show up at a funeral, Nicole, and you're just this bright, shining light because that's who you are. And just setting that intention that I'm just going to, this joy that I feel, this joy of this celebration of life, I'm going to push out to everybody in this room. And you don't even have to say a word to do it.
And I think too, you're absolutely right. For me, when it happened, I wasn't aware of the whole empathy thing. You know, and I didn't realize the power of it. I didn't realize how to control it or how to utilize it properly, how to place up boundaries properly. You know, this would all happen throughout my 20s and early 30s. And so it was, you know, my way of protecting myself and also honoring what I knew I could. And so, but you're absolutely right. But when people are unaware of what's actually going on with them or how empathic they even are, they may notice that they're just wanting to avoid certain situations and they don't know exactly why, but they just know it doesn't feel good. And they don't know how to a put up the proper boundaries to protect your own energy field, but also then how to use your energy field to shift an entire like frequency or field around you of people.
Absolutely. And I'm just like you. I didn't, this is something I've had my whole life, and I didn't have any idea or realize how to tap into those powers. And now that I do, and helping other people that I know who are empathic and just telling them that, simply just like that, like you have the ability to hold this feeling of complete love in your heart and push it out to an entire room. Or, you walk into a restaurant and you feel sort of bombarded by everyone's energy. Maybe it's low. At that moment, you just have to shift your own energy and say, okay, I'm going to be the light for this room then, instead of taking on all this negative energy, I'm just going to be the one that provides light for this room. And it's such an empowering feeling. You go from feeling like this disempowered empath that has to hide in their house and only have relationship with their animals to someone who can go out into the world and instead share this beautiful light that they have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gary.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had any wild experiences that you don't tell many people about?
Yeah, a whole lot.
You want to share any of those with the
Wow.
with the three of us, the enLIGHTenUP audience?
Wow experience that, I often say that we can't draw this stuff up. As much as we try to put pen to paper and design the perfect plan to get us to XYZ, you can never draw it up. And I think one of my greatest wild experiences, there's a couple of them. One was reflecting back on my grandmother, and she raised me right there in St. Louis. And I love my mother and my father to this day for allowing my grandmother to raise me because she taught me love. And I had a question come to me earlier today. If I do life over, what would change? And I said I wouldn't change anything. So I grew up in poverty. I grew up stuck in a one-room little spot with my grandmother, and we would play all those scenarios all over again because it's evolved me into who I am today. Uh, One story in particular with her was I could have been probably in the third. No, I was probably in the fourth or fifth grade. And we got a ride to the grocery store. We didn't have a car. And we got a ride, caught a ride with my cousin to the grocery store. It was around the first of the month. That's when Mama got paid, and that's when her food stamps came. And it wasn't the card that people have today. It was the stuff that looked like Monopoly money. And us growing up in that space, there's a lot of pressures, external pressures. Being tough was one, and uh, just not looking like you were poor, even though we all were poor, was another. And showing up to a grocery store and pulling out all these booklets of Monopoly money, the food stamps, it was embarrassing. And we were not acting the part, my cousin and I. We were managed, we were bad little brats. And we finished giving the lady the food stamps and the Eagle stamps as well. Many people don't even know what Eagle stamps are. Anyway, we get my grandmother's basket and we're pushing it out to the car. Well, the car is gone. My cousin left. She had paid him before he finished the job. And the job was to take us there and bring us home. And this store, it probably take a natural, athletic person maybe 30 minutes to walk to. My grandmother could barely walk. She leaned on the grocery cart the whole entire journey through the grocery store because of her ankles and her knees. We get out there and the car is gone. We looking, she's looking. And this is one of the best moments of my life. She sat back and took full responsibility. Direct words were, I knew I shouldn't have paid him. I knew I shouldn't have given him that money until we got home. All right, we need to get these groceries home. And here's a lady who could barely walk through the grocery store. And now we no longer have the push cart that you have in the store. We got a little basket that we push it, and then my cousin's carrying some of the groceries. I'm carrying the groceries and trying to push the cart as well. It would took he and I about 30 minutes to get home. We're probably, I don't know, 10, 12 feet into the walk, and Mama's like, baby, Mama got to take a break right now. I'm tired and I'm hurting. We did that over and over and over again. She never complained about him leaving. She never even put energy back on him. She'd already accepted the situation for what it was, and now it was about persevering. It was about getting home and getting these groceries, because I know if I don't get these groceries home, we can't eat. And it was at one point on the journey, she shared with us, baby, I need y'all to get the eggs and the milk home and the butter because it's going to rot. And we're like, Mom, what about you? I'm going to be all right. And so we raced those groceries home as fast as we could. And I ran back and I continued that walk with my grandmother, stopping every chance we could get. The only thing she would do was breathe. Is she would pray in her breath and keep going. She just wanted to make it home. That was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned. It took us a couple of hours to get home, by the way. But she never brought up my cousin believing us again. After that moment of adversity, she took responsibility, and then she just kept taking one step in front of the next and kept moving and advancing, not criticizing, not condemning, not complaining about the circumstance or the situation, just wanted to get to her destination. She's thinking about us more than anything else. And I've used that as a way of life. So do I often share that story? It's not often, but I do share that story. But
Wow.
that is one that if the listeners could embrace, that's life. And my grandmother was that person she would love unconditionally. And the crazy part is just use the word love and unconditional. They don't even go together. But I know in our society, we use those as love unconditionally. She loved. And the same person did us wrong, showed up a few days later, and she never even brought it back up to him. Just embraced him. And I learned that. And my grandmother wasn't a pushover. Here's that when we were in fights, she would run out with 2 guns in her hand. So she's the last thing from someone that was a pushover. She would clear the whole block. But she also was a person that accepted, here's what I did, not someone else did to me. And she taught us responsibility.
This is so synchronistic, because I was just having a conversation with someone last night about how people just don't seem to take responsibility for their poor life choices in these days. And your grandma is just such a example of strength, and the idea of empowerment that comes from knowing that you made a bad decision, but you're going to persevere and you're going to recorrect, and you're going to deal with the cards that you've been dealt or the hand that you chose to play. And you're going to make it work regardless. And not looking at this poor me kind of thing, which, I think anyone looking at the situation that you just described would just feel absolutely horrible for your grandma, because no one wants to see an older woman who's, not able to walk properly without any sort of help, to have to do that journey. No one would ever want to allow someone to do that, but her own fortitude and her own determination to not shackle off her responsibilities of choice, and to really own her own choices, and then walk whatever path that opened up for her. I think that's really important. And we don't see that a lot today. I think we see the opposite. We're seeing a lot of people playing victim of the way life is happening to them, that it's just happening to them. It's not happening because of choices that they've made, and then taking the time to look within to see how that is reflecting, back outwards, and what they need to do to make certain changes in how they choose. And I think it's a really great story to remind us all of how important it is that we, make good choices. But if we don't make a good choice, to know that we have to own it, and we have to live with the consequence, because I think the consequence is what provides a teacher or a reminder of why we don't want to make that choice again. And when we shuckle off that consequence, as in, it just happened to me, it wasn't a reflection of my choice, then we start to find ourselves in this victim status, and we're not empowered anymore. And your grandma made a very empowered decision, or chose a very empowered way to deal with the situation at hand.
I think if anybody really is looking for change in their life and wanting to become more of a deliberate creator of their life, step number one is you have to be willing to take responsibility for your life and the choices, and not blame, and not push that onto somebody else. Like, this is happening to me because, he left me stranded here, and your grandmother did just that. Because if you go the other route, you just bring that, you'll just create more of that in your life. Mm-hmm. If you wallow in, say, the abandonment, or, then you're going to only create more abandonment, more situations of abandonment in your life, until you get the message that you're responsible, and that you're actually creating these things in your life for a reason, to show you something about yourself.
I'm hearing you guys, and
so, wow.
Something else just hit me, just thinking about the story that never hit me before. If she would have sat back and put any energy, more than the few seconds that she did, of taking responsibility on my cousin, we would have been stuck. We would have been sitting there begging. We would have been stuck right there. The food would have spoiled, and
exactly,
the zero lessons would have been learned. All right, but the bottom line is, we would have been stuck. And just thinking about that, because we don't take responsibility, so many of us in other situations of our lives that's not allowing us to advance. We all advance from that moment. The journey just symbolizes how we continued on throughout our life, no matter what circumstance, situation showed up, to persevere and advance beyond it. There was a lesson of appreciation that my cousin and I learned in that moment, and also the courage that it takes to own it and move forward. If more of us will own our circumstances and our situations, but not penalize ourselves for it too, because that's something else that takes place. We judge ourselves. We become so critical of ourselves before what the outside world will perceive as a mistake. There are no mistakes. It's just the unfolding of our path. However it unfolds, it's just part of it. But we accept, we appreciate it, and we just continue to advance forward. We can look back and see how that served us. I don't like to look back anymore. I like to see in the moment, this is serving me. Even though I may not comprehend how it's serving me today, I know it's serving me. And because it's serving me, I'm going to accept it.
Mm. And I love that, she wasn't a pushover and she had no qualms about bringing out the guns when things went wrong.
Oh, she was the strength. They call her Big Emma. She was short, but she was Big Emma. She would beat down men and women. It didn't matter.
That's awesome. I love that.
Well, you grew up in a rough area of town from what the stories I've heard you tell me.
Yeah, it was a lot of poverty, and fortunately, yeah. And here's a story I'll share that I don't share often, but another one of those stories that this is how life's things come full circle to serve us. My father left me in that environment, and he went off to the Air Force. My mom, she was out trying to make ends meet. Both of my grandmothers came to the rescue. One was raising me, my father's mom, which is my mom, and she was my protector. And my sister, who was I think she's 18 months younger than me, was raised by my other grandmother, but they raised both of us. And the heat that my parents took, matter of fact, it put me to a position that I was constantly defending them and trying to fight everyone. You could not speak negative about my parents, even though they were not there physically. My mom was there, obviously, because she was still, my dad was gone. And I shared with my father a couple of years ago at my uncle's funeral that because of you leaving the way you did, a few things happened. I learned how to love, thanks to Mama, our grandmother, his mom. And also because you went away to try to find a better pasture to support your family. Many people look at you as you abandoned your family. You didn't abandon anything. We had prayers when we were laying on the floor, my cousin and I, praying about having a better life, praying about having better circumstances. The things that we wanted most, we thought that we would own those things. Like we were living, like I said, we sleeping on laying on the floor, on the mattress, on the floor, what have you. I remember a rat racing across my head one day, and we're praying for, a better home. But we thinking, well, we're gonna own real estate when we get older. We didn't have cars. We were hating for the buses. So we talk about owning car lots. And so everything we didn't have, it allowed us to start to dream again. And one thing about my grandma, she never killed that fire of us dreaming. Never, ever. She supported that, even though it was something that she never lived out. But I had to share with my dad that because you left, my dreams came true. Because I went to visit him in San Antonio, Texas, right before I was going into high school. And all of a sudden, I stayed there. Now I went from living in these apartments that stacked on top of other folks into being in a home. Now, we originally grew up in a home in a terrible hood, but it wasn't the same. This here was, okay, this is the stuff that we see on the magazines, and he wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. From where I was at to what he was living in, it gave me a new perspective on life. And then it also allowed me to be the first person to go off to college in my family and go down a path that no one had ever did before. I was in sports. I mean, all type of things that would start to come to life for me. And I shared with him that never would have happened the way it did if you didn't leave. And that's one of the stories I share, that we don't have to go and reflect 20 years or 30 years later about a decision that was made back then, that how it benefited us. When the world continued to put and leap coals of judgment and coals of disapproval on them, here I am leaping coals of praise and love for them. And then being able to turn around and articulate it years later on how that was the best decision, and we had to do it all over again. I would choose the same route, not be in the same household as both of my parents, but to be right there with my grandmother in poverty and struggle and health, led to one ultimate outcomes. And this outcome is going to change the world, in my opinion, talking about me and the people that are drawn to me and us mirror matching one another to go out here and pack without excuses, because we embrace our journey no matter how dark or gleam it looks. So that's about my dad, and it freed him. It freed him. But many people would not choose to look at it from that perspective. Yeah, my sisters do it to this day. They still do it to this day. It's like they say my dad, my mom owe them something. They don't owe anything. They brought us here. That's the only thing they needed to do.
You're right. A lot of people would kind of take the victim like the victim path.
Yeah, I think taking responsibility and getting out of that blame frame of mind is really the first step in finding your own power.
And perception is so important for how you view any circumstance, how you view anything going on within you. That, you know, the perception of anything is what creates your reality. And so when you shift it into a perception, Gary, where it was what catapulted you into your success drive, you know, of wanting to dream big and follow those dreams and attain those dreams and bring them into reality, using them as almost like a food source for your hunger for success. That is a result of you choosing to perceive your situation and how your life unfolded from a place of empowerment versus a place of victim.
Yeah, hearing you saying that, I think about so many of my good friends and family members that they reside right now in the cemeteries, or they have spent countless years of their lives in the prison systems. Energetically, they were not looking at life the same way, and we were all in the same circumstances. But to want out in a hold, if we go back to what we talked about earlier, from a vision that we have, how to maintain and get through it, holding on to that faith when the circumstances around us is telling us that's not happening. It doesn't even take courage. It takes the willingness to just let go of what I see and see it, what I physically see, and see it differently from my heart. There's no one that could tell me otherwise that we were not going to get out of there. No one could tell me otherwise that we were not going to have a better life than we're having right now. Even though our circumstances and our conditions was dictating something else, nothing could tell me otherwise. And what was beautiful is people start to show up. Look, when we were little, we had on the end of our street was a motel. And for our listeners who've never heard the word motel, the motel is where the pimps, the hookers, and the Johns go and do their thing. We would find, we didn't know what condoms were, but we would find those on the street. As we're playing, we'd find drug needles, we'd find all these things just down just a few houses down at the end of the block from where we grew up at. In the midst of that jungle that we were in, we have great intentions about a better tomorrow. People will show up. And there were these two nuns that showed up into our location. And my grandmother was like, you all are going with them every Sunday. And they would come get us, and they'd take us up blocks away to one of the Catholic churches. And it was there we started to learn something different than what our environment was teaching us. And then when we left that space and we moved to the west side of St. Louis, it's an all black neighborhood, but some brave German guy named Gordon moved in and he posted up at the very top of the hill. But out of all the dirty black kids that were there, out of all the trouble and the poverty, he found my cousin and I, and would take us every Sunday way away from our part of the town to another part of town. And that was in a Christian environment. So we started learning something different, a different level of awareness. The point I'm making, and then the story I just shared about my dad, those are three different stages of my life. And I can pinpoint numerous more stages, including meeting Lisa Watson on our journey, right? How those things came, I don't know. But what I do know, I had a feeling for something greater than what my present environment was showing me. And my grandmother and those that showed up continue with that encouragement that, yes, there is better. Yes, you are special. And so I guess the encouragement here to the listeners, or have you, no matter whatever you're going through in life, as long as we stay tuned in to a vision that we have that's from within,
Mm-hmm.
the right people, the right circumstances will show present to allow it help usher us to that particular destination.
You just have to believe it. You have to believe that there's more out there than what, like you said, your current present situation or circumstances are showing you, and that you deserve it.
That's perfect right there.
And then you open up all the doors of possibilities. Or you open yourself up to receiving. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for being on the show and sharing your stories with us. They're definitely inspiring at the very least. It's really, I think, important for all of us to be reminded of stories like the one with your grandmother going to the grocery store and having to walk home, and understanding that we all have personal choice in every situation, and how we choose to react or act in that situation is completely on us. And I think, given your grandmother's situation, I think there aren't too many of us who can, balk at that at all. So thank you so much, Gary, for sharing all of your wisdom and your insight, your experiences and your stories. They're very helpful. And I think many people who are listening to this episode are going to gain a lot out of the show.
I appreciate you all for having me. And this is so cool. Oh my goodness, my soul feels so great right now. So good success to you all for, I love the whole enlightenment. Matter of fact, well, I won't even go to another story because then I'll take us another hour out. But just the story, the description of you guys' podcast, the name of it, that's what the world needs. And so my great energy and support is flowing to you all to continue onward and upward towards the light and your journey of changing the world.
So you are starting a business, from what I understand, called Get Off the Couch. Is that right?
It's been going. It's been going since 2010, but we're bringing it to life soon. I just say it like that. We've been building it. I use it underground, and the essence behind that is to, when you take a seed and you put it in the ground, that's where the greatest growth takes place. That's the point of release. And so this whole mission is to get people to think like that. I will move into darkness before I break through to light. And I truly feel that moving into darkness is that internal journey to discover what our purpose is. And then the external expression of that, what the world sees in the light, or the different passions that we have. Our goal is to create passion projects, and those passion projects will symbolize entrepreneur endeavors to have more people become entrepreneurs and bring those seeds of gifting to the world through those passion projects. So we're still walking in the underground element of Get Off the Couch, but yeah, we've been live and kicking since 2010.
Awesome.
Hey, Gary, what grade school did you go to?
I was at Hempstead. First, I was at Marquette, then Hempstead, then Cook.
Where were you? Which school were you for fourth, fifth grade?
Fourth and fifth grade, I was at Hempstead.
Hempstead,
right
okay.
over in the west side.
My dad taught inner city,
Really?
St. Louis. Yeah, it was his mom was a elementary school teacher. She taught inner city as well, and that was his passion as well. So he, we grew up way out in the country, and he drove an hour every day to go into the to a neighborhood where you were from, and
Seriously?
teach.
Man.
Teach. Yeah, he was a 4th and 5th grade teacher. Yeah, but not Hempstead. I'm trying to remember.
It'll come to you. We send an energy for it to come to you right now. Wow, that's what I'm talking about. When I got involved with Legal Shield, and that was 2006, it started to hear these different names of authors and this whole personal development world. Like, okay, this is a strange world, but wow, why hasn't this came to our inner cities? Part of the underground mission was to get a lot of this content into that environment, because they would say, I don't know if it was Malcolm X or who it was, but say if you wanted to keep a secret from a black person, you put it in a book. I went into accounting so I didn't have to read anymore. And I was super successful as an accountant. At the number one team in AT&T broadband in those early stages, until I realized, man, if your name ain't on that marquee, you're disposable. You're unemployed every single day coming to that facility. And so after 8 mergers and acquisitions we went through, I'm part of this 8th one, I'm out. In those environments, no one ever talked about purpose or passion or what we really want in life. And it was so much credit to the Legal Shield world for bringing to life something that was inside of me that I knew, but yet I was conditioned to do something outside of what was natural to me. To walk away from that type of money and take the challenge and the gambles I have on life, not many people would ever do that. But it was to the spirit of what your dad did, is to bring something to the environment. Maybe you have to travel miles and miles and miles away from your norms to deliver something from a state of passion. Man, wow, that is so dang cool, bro.
So you don't remember a big white guy teaching one of your schools?
They could. Hey man, there was a whole bunch of white guys that were teaching in our school.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Mr. Koenig. I
remember Miss Linda. She was the one that worked us. My penmanship today, when many people look and say, "Oh, I love your writing," it was her, because she made us write over and over again. Write. I learned how to write cursive when I was in kindergarten. That's how adamant they were in our community, was that we had to work 10 times as hard as any other race out there just to make it. And so it was some good limited beliefs that they were impressing upon us. But I will say limited beliefs, because a lot of times with domestication, we're buying into the limits that someone else say is possible, or a dogmatic path that they want to push us down. Much respect, much love to everyone, because their intentions are good. But boy, we're not subjected to any limitation than the ones we create for ourselves. And still appreciate all the folks that have played a role in my journey. And we are all just beginning. Oh, y'all are done recording. Y'all still recording?
Yeah. We're done now.
We're done.
And where can people find you or reach out to you if they want to get in contact with you?
If they want to get in contact with me, they can reach me at Gary, Gary, at getoffthecouchnow.com. Gary at getoffthecouchnow.com.
Excellent. Well, we'll leave all that information in the show notes for the audience, so it's easy for you to find Gary. And Gary, thanks so much again for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you here. And to our audience, Thanks again for joining us this week. We'll be back with you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all for joining our show. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting us. If any of you have any questions you would like answered on the show or any guests that you would like to hear on our show, please email that information to us at info@enlightenup.us or send us a voice message using the Anchor app. There's a super cool feature on there that allows you to send us a message or ask us a question with a touch of a button right from the app. And please continue to support us by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you haven't checked out NICOLE's channel on YouTube yet, head on over there for some more insight from her, or you can visit her website, inflexibleme.com, where you can book a personal coaching session or a tarot reading, watch some of her most informative videos, or you can sign up for her newsletter. And if you're interested in some light language healing, head to my YouTube channel, Lisa Loves Love, or send me an email to lisa@lisaloveslove.com to inquire about your own personal reading. Thank you again for joining us and supporting us, and we'll be back with you all next week.